Good evening, Havarim. So this evening I'm going to be reading to you out of Yehezqel, that's Ezekiel, chapter 42, verses 7 through 20. And first I wanted to share the reasons that I'm reading this is because oftentimes if something happens in my personal life that can be rather upsetting, and I'd like to know the reason why it happened, I will, in prayer, ask Abba Father to direct me through His Ruach to a certain passage in the Word that will give me the information that I need concerning my problem, and to help comfort me, and also to help me to prevent if it's something that I fell into because of whether it being Hashatan's trick or just something that I let my guard down with that is prevalent in today's society. Being a Kodashim, a dedicated one, we always have to be on our toes, and that can be pretty exhausting when life is already pretty heavy on us in terms of work, and if we're having to use our mind a lot, it can be easy to miss something if we're not constantly staying focused. And of course, the Gader HaKodesh, that's the hedge of protection, is something that is of utmost importance to continually pray for, because that will help us to prevent any stumbling. And of course, Yahushua's loving eye on us helps to direct us. I still, though, want to emphasize that, we're in the flesh and we're going to make mistakes. So this was one of the scriptures that Yahweh led me to when I made a mistake. And I have a couple of really interesting points that I'm going to point out while I'm reading it, and also a word study that you have to look forward to. So here we go. As for the outer wall by the side of the rooms, toward the outer courtyard, facing the rooms, its length was 50 amah. 50 amah in feet is about 73 feet. Pretty amazing. If you want to check my math, you can go to the back of the Holy Scriptures version. It shows you the units of measurement, and 1 amah is about 17.5 inches. So if you multiply that by 12, you get about 73 feet. Pretty interesting. So, pretty big. Okay. Just to help give you a visual, I've got another visual that I'm going to share with you in just a minute. For the length of the rooms toward the outer courtyard was 50 amah. So 73 feet. And that facing the Heykal was 100 amah. That's about 146 feet. And below these rooms was the entrance of the east side, as one enters them from the outer courtyard, in the thickness of the wall of the courtyard toward the east. Opposite the separate place and opposite the building were rooms. I want to note that I thought it was interesting that it mentions the thickness of the wall. I was looking for an application to how can this apply to our lives, and the thickness of that Gader HaKodesh that I was talking about, the thickness of our mindset. We can ask that of Elohim to grant that to us, a thicker layer, a wider layer of the Gader HaKodesh, as to avoid stumbling and attacks. Because Hashatan, he's always attacking the Kodashim. The way in front of them was like the appearance of the rooms which were toward the north, as long and as wide as the others, and all their exits and entrances were according to plan. Just like today too, everything that happens is according to plan. Yahweh will not allow something that doesn't have a good purpose behind it. So it's another great time, if you have something going on in your life, a reminder to ask Him what's going on. And He will lead you. When I ask Him, when I do my prayer, I hold the Word and I kind of thumb through the pages, and wherever I feel like kind of almost like a slight tingling, burning, like, ooh, that's the spot. That's where I'll open it up to, and where my eyes fall, that's where I know He wants me to read, and it's always on point, like smack dab on point to what I'm asking or what I'm thinking about. So, praise Elohim. And according to the doors of the rooms that were toward the south, there was a door in front of the way in front of the wall toward the east, as one enters them. And he said to me, the north rooms and the south rooms, which are opposite the separate place, are the Kodesh rooms where the kohenim, who approach Yahweh, eat. That's the dedicated rooms who the priests who approach Yahweh eat. The most Kodesh offerings, the dedicated offerings, the most dedicated. There they place the most Kodesh items. And I like how the Hallelujah Scriptures team does items in italics, because that's kind of showing us that this English word doesn't fit items. We can imagine our Kodesh offerings. It's kind of hard to find a specific word for it, maybe sacrifices of our hearts. And the grain offerings, now here we're talking about concrete food items that Yahweh used to accept before our Adon sacrificed himself. And the sin offering and the guilt offering, for the place is Kodesh. When the kohenim enter, the priests enter, they are not to go out of the Kodesh room into the outer courtyard, but leave their garments in which they attend there, for they are Kodesh, and shall put on other garments, and shall draw near to that which is for the people. So I thought this was very interesting that the kohenim have certain garments that they wear when they go into the Kodesh place, the dedicated place. And then they remove these garments and go to the common people, the common place. So I looked up this word garments. It's beged. So here's the Otiot for beged. I'm just going to hold it up close so you can check it out while I read what the Ruach showed me that this word means. When we are in a Kodesh place dedicated to Elohim, we are with Yahushua and are to shut the door on shameful things, things that later we would regret, and open the door to Ruach, to Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, and gather information to take to others who want to improve their walk with Elohim, while simultaneously improving our walk and enjoying the company of Malachim. Oftentimes, it can be pretty easy to forget that we have the company of Malachim. I love in one of Caregiver's videos, she mentioned that the Malachim record everything that we do. And there's a record, and all these painful experiences, the tzitzits, the hem of the garments, are woven high. So if you feel like you can't figure out what your suffering is caused for, just remember that in the Shamayim, as a dedicated one, as a Kodashim, the more successful attacks you go through, the higher your weaving on your seams will be. Beautiful colors. It's a gift from Elohim to us to be able to succeed through these things. So when we finally are in the Shamayim, in the heavens, then we will be able to see each other's accomplishments by our garments. So to kind of break it down a little bit, we have Beit when we are in a Kodesh place. And remember, our physical bodies can be a Kodesh place too, so we don't ever want to pollute our bodies with contaminants that chase the Ruach HaKodesh away. So if we are a Kodeshim, a dedicated one, like getting drunk, for example, I mean, that grieves the Ruach HaKodesh, so we need to be very careful of doing that. We don't want to do that if we want to be Echad, one with Elohim. So when we are in this Kodesh place, we are with Yahushua, because Beit, that's Yeshua, number 2, the son, the Bain of Yahweh, and are to shut the door on shameful things. Anything that grieves the Ruach HaKodesh is considered shameful. And the Ruach will let you know whatever you might be doing personally that is grieving it. You have this feeling inside of you that is, it's like a sad, unsettling feeling. It's when something's continually bothering you, it's really good to take a look at and ask Abba Father, if you don't know specifically what it is, to reveal it to you, and He will. Things that later we would regret. That's another good way to measure it. If it's something that we would be ashamed of standing in front of our Adon, probably a good idea to let it go. Not probably, I'm going to say you need to let it go. And open the door to Ruach, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. Number 3, that's Gimel. And gather, this Gimel is about gathering information to take to others, the good news, anything that we eat. That's why I have it in this pan. It's spiritual food. Anything that we eat when we're spending time with Elohim, we want to be able to digest it, spend enough time in it that it really sinks in and it nourishes us, and we're able to take it to others to nourish them as well. The word also says that in the latter days a famine will come on the land. Right now we're in a good abundance-full period of the word. When the tribulation hits, we don't know what exactly is going to happen, of course, but we know that it's going to be bad. I highly recommend watching Alan's video called What If I'm Left Behind? He even recommends to make a USB. Great idea. you know, a playlist for people that are left behind. And, you know, we don't know what's going to happen when the Antichrist takes over. I mean, I can't imagine the word being available for people with a one world government under the Antichrist. So we really want to eat up now while we have the abundance. And it's cyclical too, you know. I mean, even in the days of uh, Yosef, there was a huge famine for 7 years, and he had enough food to feed all of the Mitzrites, the Egyptians, and the Ivrims, the Hebrews. Thanks to Elohim, of course. So, to gather to take to others who want to improve their walk with Elohim. We're still on Gimel, our walk with Elohim. We always want to be having that in the forefront of our minds, you know, so we don't slip, you know, to ask ourselves, is this helping me to walk either toward or away from Elohim, while simultaneously improving one's walk? So, of course, you know, I learn just as much from these videos when I rewatch them. I learn more when I go over these studies, so every single time, you know, I do something to help improve someone else's walk, I improve my own at the same time. And enjoying the company of Malachim, that's walking through the door. Yahushua, he opens the door to the physical, to the spiritual, back and forth. You know, the Nephilim, the fallen angels, they were allowed to go back and forth for a time, but now only Yahushua allows that insight for us, the Kodeshim, to be able to see. That's another thing that you can pray for, like Ayin, the eye. You can ask him, give me more Ayin, more spiritual insight and vision, and he will start revealing things to you that you might not have seen before. That's him opening the door of the Shamayim to us so that we can have things revealed to us when we continue to ask. He'll let us find the answers. So, garments, beged, is much more than just a piece of clothing. It's our spiritual clothing, who our Ruach is, and what our walk is with Elohim. That's beged. So they not only left their garments there, but they took with them what they learned when they went to the common people. And when he had ended measuring the inner house, he brought me out through the gate that faces east, and measured it all around. He measured the east side with the measuring kohenim, 500 kohenim. I'll get to what that is in a minute. 500 kohenim by the measuring kohenim all around. He measured the north side, 500 kohenim, by the measuring kohenim all around. He measured the south side, 500 kohenim, by the measuring kohenim. He turned round to the west side and measured 500 kohenim, by the measuring kohenim. On the four sides he measured it. It had a wall all around, 500 long and 500 wide. I mean, this is outrageously huge. When I did these measurements, I had a friend help me to double check my math to make sure that I was not totally off because it seemed so huge. To put it in perspective, 500 kohenim is 8.76 feet. If you multiply those together, that comes out to 4,380. And the word says that it was all around. So when it's measured all around, it's square footage. So 4,380 feet squared is 19,184,400 feet. It's like, that still doesn't put it into perspective for me. It's like, does that go up to the Shamayim? So that's about 440 acres. I'll pull up a picture just real quick. I looked that up because I wanted to see, like, what exactly does 440 acres look like? This was the size of the Kadosh place that Yehezqel describes, where the kohenim would bring their offerings. I mean, that is just so incredible. So the verses conclude by saying, to separate the Kadosh places from the common. That is so helpful to remember when, especially if anyone is being separated from someone that they love, who is not Kadosh, dedicated. Yahweh is doing this because it's a part of accepting the offering. So this isn't to say that this person who one is being separated from, that's not Kodesh, can't become Kodesh. It's very much another reason to rejoice in what Yahushua did for us, because he opened the door to everyone to being able to have a chance of salvation. And as long as it's not the end of the tribulation, there's still time. And even then, at the beginning of the tribulation, of course, all of the Kodashim, the dedicated ones, the Mashiachims, the followers of the Messiah, they are going to be nechatef, raptured. And the ones that they love, we can look at Lut. The word says that he was the only righteous one in the land of Sodom, and yet his 2 daughters were saved. That's a very important part to remember when we think of our loved ones that might not be Kodesh at the moment, or Mashiachims. And that's also another part of taking part in Yeshua's suffering. It grieved him desperately that the Ivrims didn't recognize him, his own people, as Mashiach. And Shaul too, in Romaim, in the book of Romans, he desperately wanted to save his people through preaching about Mashiach, and they didn't want to hear it. So this is an encouragement to everyone who is being separated from anyone who they love that is not walking in the way with them. It's definitely not in the scope of how deep this kind of study can go, but I just wanted to whet your appetites for it. I know I will be making more videos along this subject because it's a very real subject as the time gets closer, and we need to encourage one another. And I just want to leave it by encouraging everyone to, whenever you're struggling with accepting something that's going on that's extremely painful, ask Abba Father to take you to a specific part in the Word. That is really how I find all of my word studies these days. There's so many upsetting things. We're constantly under attack, and the only way to get through it is by clinging to the Word. So it makes it very personal. That's the way to succeed as we get closer and closer to the end. We must have that personal one-on-one relationship with Abba Father. So I hope and I pray that this study is a beracha, a blessing to you and anyone who you can share it with to encourage them too. Shalom.